Hello everybody and welcome to a special episode of What the Devil. Normally 6 p.m. on a Thursday, but today, because of the England game, we are live at UVHQ. There's two of us on the podcast today, me, Dylan and Yusuf. Lovely to have you back, Yusuf. But I want you guys involved as well. You know, we've been speaking 22 episodes now, I think it is. We've been talking a lot about United. I read all the comments, obviously. Most of them are lovely, but you know, they're quite intriguing and insightful. I like what you guys say. And I want to have a chat with you lot. And we're going to start off with the news that United want a striker. So I said on the podcast last week, for those who saw last week, that United are looking to bring in a central defender and a striker first, because, you know, United District are exclusive information. When we speak, you listen. But since then, obviously, we've been linked with a central defender and a striker mostly, and it's Joshua Zirkzee. Zirkzee? Is it Zirkzee?
Zirkzee, yeah.
Zirkzee. Joshua Zirkzee. I don't know a lot about him, right? I didn't really know who he was until we were linked with him. So, Yusuf, you do. I feel like you know kind of the strengths and the weaknesses, and you know, what would he do for United?
Football expert, what can I say? Firstly, I have to say I love having my own sofa.
Yes.
Flex, next time you're on the show, you're going to sit next to Dill, mate. Sorry about that. Zirkzee, yeah. The short answer is a little bit like how Martial was kind of 1920 time. Not quite as good, obviously, but a little bit like that. The long answer is, technically he is fantastic. Like, he is just, his touch, his dribbling, where he works through tight spaces, he's fantastic. He's one of those players where he doesn't play like a typical striker. He'll like to drop, he'll get on the ball, he'll dribble. And for his size, he's about 6'4", but he moves with so much grace. He is a really talented player, and I think he brings a lot to this team. I don't think he's better than Højlund, but I don't think he needs to be better than Højlund. What he is a very different kind of player to Højlund. He's not your kind of typical striker, out-and-out number 9, the way Højlund, someone's going to get in the box, really be a nuisance for the defenders. Zirkzee is going to be the player who's kind of dropping in, getting on the ball, getting us out of tight situations, and kind of releasing our other attackers on the transition. So I don't know if you remember under Solskjaer when we used to play Man City and other big teams, Martial, what he was so good at was, obviously we spent a lot of the game with them having the ball, we'd be under pressure, we'd go long and we'd find Martial, and his touch, his ability with the ball would just get us out of tight situations, slow the game down and drag us up the pitch a little bit, and I think Zirkzee will do a bit of that for us.
Okay, so what, he's 6'4"?
Yeah,
I didn't think he was that tall. But again, this is me, I don't know anything about him really.
He's supposed to be, but I think he's like 6'4".
So he's, as you said, he's someone who offers something different to Højlund. Would that be therefore good for Højlund in the way that you got a different, or is that better for Ten Hag, or is it better for Højlund that is someone who's a different profile?
I think it's a positive for both, to be honest. I think if it was someone who was the same as Højlund but better, it wouldn't be that good for Højlund. This is someone who's different to Højlund, so it gives him not only competition, but someone to actually be a bit of a reference and like improve off a bit. Now, granted, Zirkzee, he's not a really experienced striker. He's only 23. He's a couple years older than Højlund, but he's got, you know, those qualities that Højlund doesn't have. And Højlund will look at him and think, right, now I know where to improve. It's just absorbing all that information just from seeing how Zirkzee trains, how he plays. It happens a lot in football, and I think Zirkzee brings a lot that Højlund will look at and think, now I need to add this to my game. And Højlund's got the ability, he's got the raw talent to add that to his game. And at the same time, Zirkzee might look at some of Højlund's qualities. He might think, I want to be the starting striker over Højlund. This is what he's doing, right? I need to add this to my game now. So they'll be good for each other if their mentalities are right. And I think that their mentalities are right.
So if we've got now, let's say, Zirkzee comes in, it's what, 34 million release clause?
Yeah.
Plus whatever the agent fees are. I know there's been a lot of discourse around the agent's commission, all that. Apparently they're demanding, his representative is demanding AC Milan about 12 million quid in commission. And then it was said yesterday, or the other day at least, that he'd be willing to reduce that for United due to the good relations between the agent and Zirkzee and United, which is, it's good stuff from INEOS.
We're Manchester United, good relations. Again.
We are Manchester United at the end of the day. So we got two strikers. Last season we had two strikers, but one of them was Anthony Martial, whose last game ended up being in December. So we had one striker from January onwards. Having two strikers who are young, hungry, obviously want to play, want to score, and establish themselves on the world stage in the best league in the world, in the Premier League, at one of the biggest clubs in the world. That would provide a lot of competition, but does that also give Ten Hag, do you think, more flexibility
100%.
with potentially playing, so two strikers, like, so those who don't know, obviously Yusuf is a writer for United District. He's a fantastic analytical writer, and yesterday we published an article, was it yesterday or the day before yesterday? Yesterday, surrounding Zirkzee and what he'll do. And so if you want to know more about that, you know, visit our website, search Zirkzee in the search bar, the article will come up. But so you mentioned about the tactical flexibility and potential change in formation that Ten Hag could have. And maybe that could be something that will help him have more of a Manchester United style, the style that Jason Wilcock wants, by having potentially the option of playing two strikers.
Yeah, and we saw at the end of last season, Ten Hag did make that an option at times. The final few games, obviously, we used the diamond. And Zirkzee brings a lot of options for the diamond, particularly. I mean, you can go for a more typical 4-4-2, have Zirkzee be that striker who typically just drops in, gets on the ball a bit more, almost creates like a 10, and then a more direct runner like a Garnacho or a Rashford or Højlund playing with him. But one thing I think a lot of people haven't thought about that's a really interesting option is Zirkzee, because of how he plays, can actually play at the tip of a diamond. So diamonds, I remember United Arena a few years back explained how diamonds work in a really good way. So you can either have it as like a 10 almost, and you've got two strikers, or you can actually have the tip of the diamond play be almost like a false 9, and your two forwards split and play almost as like wingers. And I think Zirkzee can play in that false 9 role at the tip of the diamond well. Bruno has shown he can play a little bit deeper. So let's say, for example, we signed Amadou Onana. Not Andre Onana, Amadou Onana. I don't know if anyone saw that clip the other day that he got.
Yeah, that was hot. That was a shocker.
It's just his accent was the most impressive thing to me. He just switched from, you know, speaking in his normal voice to like sound like a proper northerner.
It's like Isak.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Newcastle, Isak sounds like he's South London sometimes.
But yeah, let's say hypothetically we signed Amadou Onana. You got him at the base. Bruno's one of your 8s. The other 8 can be, you've got options there. You can have Mount, you can have Mainu. You can even use Amad Diallo as an 8. But then Zirkzee is your 10, and then have Rashford and Højlund or Rashford and Garnacho as your two split strikers at the top.
Okay. And I think another thing also that people aren't talking about or haven't really mentioned yet, Zirkzee, I believe he's right-footed?
Yeah.
Yeah, Højlund's left-footed.
Yeah.
It'd be lovely to have a right-footed striker and a left-footed striker. Højlund's right foot actually isn't bad. He's scored some nice goals this season. But if you've got a right-footed striker in Zirkzee, left-footed striker in Højlund, and then you say let's say we're playing that two-striker system with the Bruno Fernandes false 10-ish thing like we saw towards the back of last season. You can then have the inside forwards, one right foot, one left foot. So they'd be, like you said, they'd be a bit like wingers, but like kind of inverted wingers, playing closer in. And then if you've got, let's say Luke Shaw is able to find a new hamstring and find a new calf and play left back, and Dallow's continuing to be a Diogo Dallo at right back. You've then basically got a front 5 of Bruno in the middle, slightly back, the two strikers inside forwards, and then the two full-backs that can come out either side. So obviously when the attack's on the left-hand side, Dallo can slip in, and then when the attack's on the right-hand side, Shaw can slip on the left.
Yeah, and this is actually why I said Ahmad's an option in that 8 role, because then another option you can have Ahmad go wide and Dallo step inside, because we know he's inverted a lot this season. There's a lot you can do with it, and I think I like that about this potential Zirkzee signing. It brings a lot of options. And another thing that I thought about now, the subs. So in games where Højlund starts, he's going to be on the centre-backs all game. You're kind of thinking he's going to probably get a couple goals, whatever. Later in the game, if we just want to see out a win, you can bring on Zirkzee, and like I said, he can get on the ball and slow it down. Just take those touches, dribble with the ball. Like I said, game management. And then in the big games, for example, if United may have to take a more conservative approach, you can do Zirkzee, like I said, Martial and with Pogba when he played higher up the pitch. What they did for us is that they can be that out ball, you aim for him, he drags us up the pitch a little bit. And then later in the game, if you want to go for it a bit more, take off Zirkzee, bring on Højlund or Højlund's legs off the bench. That energy, that directness he brings is going to be a pain for centre-backs to deal with.
Yeah, I feel like we quite haven't seen how fast Højlund is yet. Because some people I don't think quite realise that he's the fastest player in our squad. He's absolutely rapid, Højlund is. And I think that'll be something that we'll be able to see more often next season.
He's probably one of the fastest players in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a quick guy.
So
really one thing that Ed has said, which poses a great question, is he says, so where would Rashford be? They gave him all that money to hold the bench. Marcus Rashford, it's a touchy topic. I know obviously it divides a lot of opinion. Thank you very much, Ed, for sending in the comment. And anyone else, let us know your thoughts in the comment section. I'll be reading through them and all of that, all the stuff that KG does. But it's a good point. So let's say we bring Zirkzee in. Like, what does that mean for Rashford? Would it be kind of Rashford would only then play when we're playing 3 up front? Would he then kind of be relegated to a bench role if we sign Zirkzee and play the 2 strikers?
I mean, Rashford can play as one of the 2 strikers, and obviously we saw in the cup final where he started over Højlund, where a lot of people probably would have said, okay, Højlund should be the one starting, but I think we'll play a front 3 most of the time anyways. So it's a good point, but I do think Rashford will be like a key player still, and I think it also depends on his confidence as well. Obviously, we know Rashford had a really tough season mentally, but I think he'll have a big season next season, to be honest. That's one thing
I agree.
Looking at.
Like Marcus Rashford, I will just declare it, like I am a big fan of Marcus Rashford, I always have been. At least, I don't know, it's part of this storyline or whatever, but I completely understand why people get so angry with him. And I get really frustrated with Rashford as well, because I'm just like, I know how good you can be. But he tends to have, like, decent season, amazing season, terrible, then better, even worse, then even better. So, maybe next season we're looking at 40 goals. Yeah. I mean, we're realistically not looking at 40 goals. Yes, Ed, we are live. He just said, me just realising this is live. Yeah, so we are live. I know normally What the Devil isn't, but because of the England game today, we are live at UVHQ, which I'm saying, get involved, get in the comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Also, something I forgot to mention earlier, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to listen back to any podcasts, or you miss it, or you're driving, you're out and about, you're running, you're writing, or drive. No, I already said driving. But so there's those 2 as well. So remember to listen in there. So Miles says something else, which is a bit of a throwback name. He says, might sound odd, but Zirkzee would do well in the Fellaini role. And I'm assuming he means the latter Fellaini role that Jose Mourinho had. Yes, girls as well as guys. And then someone else has said, Nacho, how do you say that? Nacholini17 has said, Zirkzee is like João Felix. Zirkzee is not a striker, he's a centre forward. So there's a couple of people there insinuating that he could maybe, I don't know, let's say we sell Scott McTominay and Zirkzee can play that role. I personally don't think so. Like, from what you've said, he sounds like obviously a very good technical forward. So having him as a crash bang wallop option may not be the best. Yeah,
he's very much not a crash bang wallop forward, because the thing about McTominay, firstly he runs from deeper, right? And that's what people don't consider. A lot of people don't consider it's different. It's like when McTominay was scoring, people saying, oh, put him up front. And I'm like, no, it's not the same just because he's scoring, put him up front, because up front he's fixed in that space where he's getting his goals coming from deeper and attacking the space in time. It's completely different. So, yeah, he's crash bang wallop from midfield. But Zirkzee is actually not much of a crash bang wallop striker player. He's a player who's going to come from higher to drop deeper, whereas McTominay's going to come deeper to go higher, if that makes sense, if you know what I mean. Weirdly, McTominay and Zirkzee could probably work well off one another.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But I do want to bring you some breaking news. Thank you for the comments for letting me know about this. Telegraph Ducker, James Ducker, fantastic journalist, has just claimed that Manchester United are preparing to trigger the release clause of 34 million for Joshua Zirkzee. So live, as we're recording this, developments are still happening. So it seems even more now that this is the kind of guy that they want. And one thing I'm interested about with this is it's not an older player. I kind of thought we'd be going for an older player, like, more experienced, like Wout Weghorst type. Like, twilight of his career, can help manage the game load of Højlund. But this is I think this is a bit of a statement. More of a, we're going to get multiple sick players in. It's almost team cohesion, but also cutthroat. The best one will start. Højlund, Zirkzee, prove yourself.
I mean, Ratcliffe, obviously we'll get on to these in a minute. Ratcliffe's comments earlier, he said about wanting to end up being like Real Madrid. I'm sure. Yeah. This is what Real Madrid do. They buy all these young top guys. I mean, look, Arda Güler would be one of the best players in most teams in the world, and at Madrid it's like you hardly think about him because there's Vinicius, there's Rodrigo, there's now Endrick, there's going to be Mbappe. Literally all these guys.
Oh yeah, no, I admire Real Madrid, at the same time I despise them. It's annoying. Like I see what they do in the transfer market. I see their amazing stadium and stuff, and I'm just like, oh, go away. But at the same time, I then watch them, and part of me is like, I actually kind of want you to win. I don't understand it. I don't like that team, but I also do like them.
I think everyone hates them winning so much. It's almost fun watching them win.
Yeah, it is. It is like while we're so
Bad.
just on the floor, it's entertaining to watch that. But I think we're a dark horse for one of the most entertaining teams in the league next season. Remember Liverpool's one of their first seasons under Klopp where they'd score like 5 goals a game and concede 4 goals a game, and every game was a 5-4. I reckon we're in for a season a bit like that next season.
I'm just
assuming our team is, you know, we make obviously the transfers that we need to make, as Ratcliffe has said today or yesterday, and assuming we don't have the 65 injuries again. I reckon we're in for a bit of a rollercoaster season, but in more of a like theatrical way rather than a what's just happened way.
I'm just going to say my take from the last podcast might age well.
Which was?
The one about being entertaining.
Yeah, true.
No, I think, yeah, like I say, they've got that ambition now. I said all along, if the Cavani signing 2021, if we made that signing in that time but just transferred it to now, 2024, that probably would have been perfect for Højlund. But I think INEOS are making a big statement now. I mean, they've said they want to recruit young, and it feels like a very INEOS-driven signing. Zirkzee, now granted, Ten Hag will have given his sign-off on it, and I mean, Zirkzee's Dutch, so...
He's Dutch, I'm sure he'll be happy with it.
Yeah, he'll be delighted, but I might tell him to shave his hair off, but he'll be delighted. It feels very much like an INEOS-driven signing, because in the past we would have signed that old veteran striker. Now, Cavani, very injury-prone, he was decent, but how many of those signings have worked for us? Not quite as many.
If they have worked, it's short-term, like Ibrahimovic was short-term. He was gone 15 months after he arrived. Same with Ronaldo. Cavani kind of just disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
After about 2/3 of a season.
Look, like, it's good. It brings tactical versatility for Ten Hag. It gives Højlund competition, but also it gives Højlund a bit of a relief, because in the kind of final few games of last season, he had been struggling. He got a bit of rest, came off the bench. He looked a lot better just for the fact he had that little bit of rest.
Yeah.
And I think people forget as well, when he came from Atalanta, he had that back injury that needed managing. You've got to look after those players. So I think he'll still be the main striker. I don't think Zirkzee is better than Højlund, but I think Zirkzee is different, and that's very good for us. And in some games, Rashford, Garnacho, players like that, they'll thrive a lot of playing with Zirkzee, because Zirkzee is going to be able to facilitate for them to be their best selves, their most goal-scoring selves. But I do think, and Rashford especially, I thought last season he was very good with Højlund at times. Like, he wasn't the same kind of goal-scoring threat, but he genuinely was good. Like, I actually thought he was the player who was creating best for Højlund at the start of the season. And they'll learn to play with each other, but I think in those games where you want Rashford to be that inside forward more, Zirkzee is going to be really good for him.
Yeah, so you mentioned about, you know, looking after players and everything. That is something that, as I've alluded to a few times already, Sir Ratcliffe, is one thing he said in his recent interview with Bloomberg. He said that looking after players is just as important, or we basically said it's just as important as signing players, signing new players, because you need to look after who you've got. And with the number of games that players are now being asked to play and potential new competitions coming in, like Rafael Varane's been obviously very vocal about it, he's right. So I just want to move on to some of the stuff that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said in that interview. And the interesting one was how transparent he was about, he didn't name him, but about Todibo and what's happened with Todibo. So just for anyone who may have missed it this morning, I'm sure Owen covered it during this morning's live stream. But so Sir Jim Ratcliffe said, "We've got a player in Nice who was really interested in joining Manchester United, and I think he probably has the capacity in being in the Manchester United squad. They, as in UEFA, said we can sell him to another Premiership club, but we can't sell him to Manchester United, which is unfair, really. I don't see what that achieves." So Ratcliffe, it's a multi-club model. He said in the thing he likes a multi-club model. But I think he's right. I think UEFA blocking this move is just like, it feels like a bit of a decision that no thought really went into it. They weren't fair, as Ratcliffe said, unfair. They weren't really fair with the decision. They didn't kind of take into consideration, that Nice are now in a trust. Because Nice, for the next season, they're in a trust in order to be able to compete in the Europa League. So technically, INEOS don't directly own or aren't directly involved with Nice from now anyway. Yeah. So I feel like it is a problem that INEOS are going to have in the multi-club model, because City are being like kind of all hell is raining down on them with their whole multi-club model and the sponsorships and everything. I feel like it could be something that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS are going to end up getting caught up with, just because it's just going to be almost a side effect.
Yeah. Now, granted, I didn't actually want to sign Todibo anyways. I didn't think he was the right... I didn't think he was the right player for it was, so I'm not too bothered about the player. It's more kind of the principle, if you know what I mean. Like, if you were going to do this, surely you would have done this ages ago. Like, multi-club models are not a new thing now. They've been around for a few years. It's just now they're kind of choosing, okay, we're going to do this. Now, I get it. We're in the same competition as these and stuff, but look at what the Red Bull Group have been doing for years. Like, the amount of players that have moved between Leipzig and Salzburg.
Yeah, like Sesko.
Yeah.
Sesko moved from Salzburg to Leipzig easily. Haaland almost did as well. There was no problems with any of those.
Half the Leipzig players played for Salzburg at some point. Now, a lot of people use the example of Savio going to City. Granted, he wasn't actually a Girona player. He was on loan there from Troyes, but I think City Group own Troyes. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Believe so. Let's say they do, for the sake of agenda. Anyway, yeah. But you're right. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about Red Bull. Yeah, Red Bull it's a great example. Like, I really think UEFA are being hypocritical here. Like, as you said, it's not a new thing. The multi-club model is not new. It's something that's existed for ages. Red Bull have done it. City Group are doing it. I'm sure there's a couple of other clubs. Chelsea have
Strasbourg in France.
Yeah, and I think they have a Serie A team as well, or am I just lying there? Well,
not too sure.
Either way, it's not like it's a new thing. But I feel like it's because it's come to light at the same time with the City stuff. UEFA are deciding to make a stand for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And I think I'd say obviously the person that's missed out the most on this is Todibo.
Yeah, you got to feel for him because look, like the chance to move from Nice to Manchester United is pretty massive.
Oh yeah, it's huge. I mean, most 90% of players I'd say would want to move to Manchester United in an ideal scenario.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do feel for him. And so instead, obviously, we're now targeting Jared Branthwaite, and INEOS have been blasted by people from the Everton side. A couple of ex-Everton players have been reading some stuff saying that 35 million bid that we put in was a bit outrageous. I don't think it's outrageous at all. Just in the way of, I think INEOS are going over the top to try and establish a new pattern for United and set a new precedent for United. Because we bought Harry Maguire for 80 million. We bought Anthony for 85 million. We bought Pogba for 89 million. Pogba obviously was fantastic, but we still paid 89. We still showed that we're willing to fork out these 80 plus million fees for people. We paid 72 million for Højlund as well. And I think INEOS want to start going, hold on, we're not doing this anymore. We're not that Manchester United, we are this new Manchester United. So I think the Branthwaite bid is completely fair.
It's generally just how negotiations work. Like, you always start low.
Yeah.
It's not... it's actually quite stupid that people are getting annoyed over it. Like, obviously, Everton lens, you are going to think, what are they doing? But it's literally just how negotiations work. You start low. That's like the first rule of it. Like, come on. Like, you know, we're not trying to take the piss out of Everton or anything. Everyone knows the 35 million bid's not going to be accepted. We know the 35 million bid is not going to be accepted, but we're starting low. Like you said, we're making that statement. We're letting Everton know, right, we're not going to get stiffed. And I wouldn't go above 55 million. I don't think INEOS will go above 55 million. And I reckon we can get him for that.
I think that's a fair fee as well. I've said on here before, I think spending 70 million on Branthwaite, as from what I've watched of him, I don't think he's worth that. Because, I mean, he might be worth that in the future. Obviously, he's only 21. When he's 26, 27 years old, he might be an absolute bona fide world-class centre-back. But I think as much as you can say, oh no, you're paying for the talent, you're paying for the future, you're paying for longevity, it's a risk that United can't take. So I don't think we should be spending... I think it will be, hopefully, around 50, 55 million. Maybe the same kind of fee that we paid for Mount.
Yeah.
I think, it's about 50 million with another 5, 10 million in add-ons. Achievable add-ons, for example, like if he makes 100 appearances for United, if he wins the league...
Is that achievable right now?
If he wins the Ballon d'Or. No, but if he's 21 and we want to be, in 3 years' time, we want to be back up there fighting for the title and all of that, which is, I think, the plan. So Jim Ratcliffe has said many times, 2-3 years.
Yeah.
He'll be 24 then. Lisandro Martinez will be 27. That's a potential fantastic centre-back pairing.
Yeah. See, I know Branthwaite is comfortable with his right foot, and a lot of people have said he's played right centre-back before for PSV, but I hate the idea of a left-footed centre-back playing at right centre back. Like, I don't know. It might just be you know those like weird football takes people have, like, oh, you hate short corners or you hate outswinging corners. I just hate the idea of it.
But Branthwaite is pretty ambipedal.
Yeah.
So I was looking into this. The Athletic did a fantastic article last week about Branthwaite, about how he could fit in at United. And Branthwaite said earlier this year he likes playing long passes with his left and short passes with his right. So if he's playing at right centre-back and we're looking to build up, play into the midfield, play into Kobe Mainoo on the half-turn, blah, blah, he'd be using his right foot.
Yeah, he'd be definitely be very good at it.
So I think surely then it's not necessarily having a left-footed dominant player at right-back if you've got a player who's so comfortable on both feet.
It depends really. I think he's more of a left centre-back. We have to see. I mean, I think he is worth getting in as a player because he's got a very big ceiling. He's a very talented player. Seems to have a very good mindset too. And obviously I read on District about the things Carlo Ancelotti said about him. And if you get the Carlo Ancelotti seal of approval, you're clearly a very good player. I think, yeah, he'll fit in. I think also he has got developing to do still. So I can see him and Martinez not always playing every game. Like, they can rotate a little bit. It's options. I would still be looking to get a right centre-back in, but...
Oh, we have to, for sure.
Yeah.
We definitely do.
Like a proper right-footed centre-back. But I'm just... Because we do need to replace Varane, but I'm just... The market right now, I'm not sure who's right. I mean, Lenny Yoro is going to go to...
Real Madrid.
Antonio Silva had a bit of it. I love him. I think he's fantastic still, but he had a bit of a difficult season. I think good for him to have one more year at Benfica, maybe. Tadibo, I was not a fan of. Chalobah is good, but he's a player you sign as a backup, like to replace... You buy him to replace Lindelof in this squad, basically, not to start. De Ligt, I'm not sure what the situation is with him. He's good. I think him and Lissandro are not the perfect fit together, but he's good. But there's just no one who you look at the right centre-back slot and you strike as that's the one. Now with Branthwaite, it's a case of he's good, get him in. Just sign a good player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's not like the market isn't full of right centre-backs.
Yeah,
because Johnny Evans, as far as what's been said, is there's been loose reports that we're going to offer him another further year deal, which I think is going to happen. Because obviously the clubs are in talks about it. It's not like Johnny Evans is massively in demand, because obviously he's 36, 37 years old. But I think he's definitely worth keeping around. Lindelof, in the last week, he's been linked to Everton, Fenerbahce with Jose Mourinho, and there's a third club, can't remember, but he's been linked to it with a move away, and I think Lindelof is one who will go.
Yeah.
Harry Maguire, I think, might end up staying and he might end up being that right centre-back choice, because if we've got then Lisandro Martinez and Branthwaite as left centre-back options, left-footed left centre-back options, and then Shaw potentially as a third.
Yeah.
And then you've on the right centre-back side, you're going to end up having Maguire, Evans and Cambuala.
Branthwaite as well. And
then Branthwaite as a possible option there. As I'm saying that, I agree with you completely that we need another right centre-back. But yeah, again, to be fair, I agree. I'm not actually quite sure. If you guys know of any centre-backs, right centre-backs, that you would like to see United sign, do let us know. Yusuf will know who they are. I might not.
There's plenty out there. You just need to look a little bit.
Maybe we need to, just like extend the scouting network. Go find some bloke from Brazil, obviously, like not just any guy, but go find a player from Brazil, because, Ratcliffe wants to sign the next Mbappe. He'll probably want to sign the next Varane. And if obviously, Yoro is definitely the next Varane. That makes sense. Like, he's quick, lanky, two-footed, good in the air. Like, he's a perfect Varane replacement. And Real Madrid are fine for now the next 15 years. But yeah, again, back to the whole Real Madrid thing. But it's what Ratcliffe wants to do. It's what he wants to do. Be Real Madrid. So we should go sign their players.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to buy some good players, to be honest.
Yeah, I still don't know how to feel about this season. Next season. Like, part of me is, like, as I said before, I think we're potentially in for an exciting season. But, and we spoke, so last week when Flex was on, we spoke a lot about, what we want to see going forward from INEOS. What are the goals that Erik Ten Hag must achieve to sign a new contract? You've always been pro Ten Hag, want to keep him, all of that. So I'm going to ask you, because I've asked a lot of people this, what are your parameters, both numerically and kind of like tangibly and intangibly? What will he need to do to actually earn that new contract? Not just necessarily earn writing it, also feel like he's earned it from the fans, if that makes sense. So what does he need to do?
Obviously, this season I was a bit more lenient towards Ten Hag. I was critical of him, but I was a bit more understanding of his struggles. Weirdly, now that I know he's staying, I'm going to be a lot harsher because I'm like, right, you stay now, right? You've got to go and do this. So next season, it's got to be a top 4, but not cheating our way to top 4, if you know what I mean. Because, you know, in previous seasons, we've had these seasons where we'll finish in top 4 and everyone's like, oh, it looks great, but loads of people say it's unsustainable, and we've kind of relied on quality making us look a little bit better than we are.
Like individual qualities?
Yeah, making us look a little bit better than we are to get top 4, and then the following season we drop off. What I want to see now is actually top 4 where it looks like, right, they're in top 4, these guys can actually push 3, 2, like the following season actually pushing to a title challenge. I want to see a top 4 charge with real sustainability. I'd like to win the Europa League.
Well, yeah, everyone wants to win the Europa League. I don't want to lose the Europa League.
Yeah, I mean, at least one of the cups. So, FA Cup, Europa League, Carabao. I mean, it's the Carabao. It'd be nice if we won it, but I wouldn't be as hurt if it was not the FA Cup or the Europa League.
Would you say that there's definite scope for Ten Hag to have a better season even than the last 2 he's had, so his best season yet, even if he doesn't win a trophy? So let's say we end up getting knocked out in the Europa League semi-finals. We have a one-off stinker in the 5th round against Middlesbrough in the FA Cup again, and the Carabao Cup, maybe we lose in the final or something. But we finished 3rd in the league with 78 points, and there's a coherent style of play, and all the players look happy and winning stuff. Like, would that be better than what's happened before, where we win a trophy, but it's a bit all over the place?
Yeah, I'd say so. I do think this could be Erik ten Hag's best season at Man United, 100%. Because that first season he adapted to the players he had just to get the best out of them, to generate that buy-in, build himself some credit in the bank. This season now just gone, he had to rip up the foundations and start enforcing, okay, this is my way, we're going to do it this way, and grow through the pain almost. And I think towards the end of the season we saw that it got a little bit better, and the FA Cup final win, there was a lot of his work that kind of came to fruition. I was really happy for him, to be honest. And when obviously we all thought he was going to be sacked, and I was like, you know what, if he's going to go, I'm so glad he got to go on this high. Now, next season, I think if we recruit right this summer, we can be a genuinely good team. I think Liverpool 17-18 is actually a pretty decent comparison. Like, we're going to be a very offensive minded team. We'll get a lot more goals than this season, I think. One key thing for me, back to what you said about Ratcliffe looking after players as well, I think we'll be a fitter team. Because now INEOS are investing in the sports science department again, building that back up. That Arsenal club doctor has started again his job with us, because obviously he was delayed for quite a while. We need better recovery processes in place, that players come back fully fit and just recover well after games, because that's such a problem. But I think we'll be a fitter team next season, because we've been through all these injuries this season, but I think they've been forced to kind of get used to a more intense style of training. And Johnny Evans said this after the FA Cup final, I'm pretty sure. He said it was really tough at first, really intense, but your body adjusts. And now, if we get the pre-season right, if we train the players right, condition them right, they will adjust and they will be ready. And I don't think, at the start of last season, the fittest players looking were Højlund and Mount, the players we signed. If we sign someone like Brandtwaite, he's going to come in, he's going to look very physically fit. If we sign Zirkzee, he'll come in, he'll look very physically fit. But with the rest of the squad getting back up to those levels, I think the fitness aspect is really important. And I think if we have a fit squad, it's easier to field more consistent 11s, easier to build familiarity, and for Ten Hag to instill his ideas. And also just stuff like execution stuff. When you're tired, you don't execute as well, naturally. Yeah. If the players are fit and alert and up for it, on their toes, one big problem we have is we're on our heels quite a lot. We need to be on our toes more as players, but if all these things are in place, I think we will be a much better, fitter, more exciting football team next season. And also off the ball, defensively, I think we will be a bit more secure in that regard. Yeah,
it's the one thing for me that I really want to see is I want to trust my defence again.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've not been able to trust. I had trust in Martinez and Varane, but I think because they were just a brilliant pairing. Yeah. Obviously, that then from the Sevilla game at Old Trafford where they both got injured, they basically never played together again, apart from the FA Cup final and maybe one or two times during the league last season. But I want to, because I do, contrary to what Flex has said to me a few times, I do trust Onana. He does have, I'll admit, he's got a wobble every 9 or 10 games in him, like in the FA Cup final, like that. Yeah, like he had a weak right hand when he was diving down to try and save Doku's shot. He does, but overall, I have trust in Onana. When he's playing, I have trust in Luke Shaw. I have trust in Diogo Dalot, and I definitely have trust in Lisandro Martinez. Yeah. But it's that right centre-back position, obviously when Martinez isn't playing. If we find someone, even if it is Harry Maguire, right, and Harry Maguire stays at the club and he plays well, and I start to trust him again, I just want to have a back four and goalkeeper I can trust. And I feel like I can trust our best ones, but it's when anything goes wrong that I lose trust in it. But I want to have trust in the backups as well. Midfield, I have no idea what to think about midfield because we're not going to sign a midfielder, I don't think, until later this window. And strikers, the attack, it just bogs my mind a bit because I love Garnacho, but I don't necessarily trust him yet to be, he's only 19. You shouldn't trust him on being, like, providing 2 goal contributions every 3 games or something that you'd want from a Man United winger like Rashford last season. Højlund, I don't necessarily trust him yet to bag loads of goals. Or I think next season, if he gets 15 in the league, I'd be very happy with that. Maybe 7 or 8 across all competitions. Maybe 10 if we go far in the Europa League. 25 goals, I think, is more than achievable for him. Yeah. Rashford, no idea. Amad Diallo. So the report came out the other day about Amad Diallo being a more trusted person in the squad, and I reckon that's due to the fact that we're not going to sign Elise.
Yeah. I
think if we got Elise, Amad's position may have been a little more insecure because of all the budgets and everything. Once I think it's become clear that we can't sign Elise, the club and Ratcliffe and Ten Hag have gone, okay, we'll instead of signing another player instead of Elise, we're just basically going to upgrade Amad into the position that Elise would have been in. Because Amad was so good. Yeah. Last couple of games. It really took me by surprise. As much as I know how good Amad is, I've watched him at Sunderland. Obviously, when he came from Atalanta, I watched a few clips of Atalanta and watched him in the youth team. But I didn't expect him to be looking like he'd already played 25 games this season during his first start, when he played fantastically against Arsenal and then scored that beautiful goal against Burnley. Was it Burnley? It was Burnley.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
No, I was
so taken aback. And obviously in a good way, but I was like, this guy, I know he's good and everyone hypes him, but like I see it now.
It was Newcastle he scored against.
Newcastle. Yeah, because he scored and then he dedicated to the Sunderland fans.
Yeah, Anthony scored that goal against Burnley, then did the 50 celebrations.
Yeah,
He was personal photographer as well.
Yeah, but just going back to what I was saying, like I want trust in my team.
Yeah.
I want us to play. Well, Sheffield United have gone down. I want to play Ipswich at home, and I want to see us. I want to go. I reckon we can score 4 here, or something. Or all play. Go to who's still in the league? Go to Crystal Palace away and not be worried that we're going to concede 4 goals. Like I want trust more than anything. If Ten Hag can get me to trust in our players again, then I'm more than happy to see him sign a new contract. Yeah. But I don't want to see him sign a new contract yet. If he signs a new contract, I don't want that to happen until March.
The only thing about the new contract for me now is that I would say it's important in this regard. In his current contract, he's got way too much power. Like he's got the veto on transfer and everything. If INEOS want to run the club the way they want to run the club, they've got to get rid of that as soon as they can. Another thing is about the message it sends out, because imagine waiting until March where he's got a few months left in his deal and then say, oh, we'll extend United. It might just create a bit of uncertainty, but that's not as bad. What it is, it's the amount of power he has. INEOS need to take it out.
Yeah. Maybe March is a bit late, maybe like New Year. But what I don't want to see is us to win 3 games, 3 of our first 4 games, or we beat Liverpool at the end of August, and then he signs a new 5-year deal.
Yeah,
it's not going to be a 5-year deal. It'll be 3. But that's the one thing I'm worried about, obviously, because that's very much a United of old type thing to do. I don't think INEOS would do that, considering they took 2.5 weeks to make this decision to start with. They are so methodical, and I think ultimately that's good for us. Obviously, makes us impatient. But I don't want to see INEOS just kind of put the contract down and go, right, here's the contract. Like I want to see Ten Hag have to prove himself again, because as you talked about earlier, he gained a lot. He got credit in the bank during his first season. He then spent that credit last season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So he's starting now with 0 credit. He needs to immediately build that and keep it, then sign the new contract. Because imagine we win those first 3 games, he signs the contract, and then we get knocked out of the Europa League. It's just like, okay, now we're stuck with him again, and they're going to have to pay 20 million to get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. It's just a slight worry I have. I want Ten Hag to have to prove himself.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You don't want to rush it, but yeah, you don't want to rush it. There's also, you don't want the too much power. That's the biggest thing about a new contract.
The power, you are completely right with that.
That's my biggest worry, but yeah, you're right. You don't want to rush it. I mean, look, he's got to prove himself now, and it's quite funny. Like I said, last season I was more lenient on him because I understood what a lot of his struggles were. Now I'm going to be judging him very harshly. I'm like, right, you better deliver.
He has to. He has to.
There's no excuses.
I think he can. I think he's a manager who needs the ideal environment scenario in order to succeed. But I think, like he had at Ajax, he had his ideal scenario, he had his ideal players, he had his he had his ideal scenario, players, environment, people above him, everything, blah, 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 to succeed, and he did. He's very good at kind of raising the best of the best.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a fantastic manager. He's like, the ceiling raiser versus floor raiser.
Yeah.
I think he's a ceiling raiser manager. If we've got players who already have a high floor, those like Fernandes, Lisandro Martinez, Shaw, etc., people who just have like a high floor. Kobe Mainoo, I'd say,
they're just good
high
players.
floor as well. Yeah, they are just good players. He can make them fantastic. But I think he can't do what he can't do is make average players good. So he needs the ideal scenario. He needs the right technical director. He needs the right scouts. He needs the right players, blah, blah, blah. And if we have that, then he's going to be fantastic. Then he'll be a great manager. I'm confident in saying that.
Yeah.
But if anything goes wrong, like he did last season, it just goes catastrophically wrong, which is a bit of a red flag. But if we can get that ideal scenario and then he plays well, then we'll be all grand.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is, like, we're Manchester United. Like, we've got to have that quality in place, and that's the thing about INEOS now. That's why I've been saying for a while, they're the ones with the biggest role to play now, because even Jim Ratcliffe himself said the environment of the club has not been right. He said that on a few occasions. So if you get the environment right, and Ten Hag fits in that environment, that's another key thing. If he fits in that environment, INEOS wouldn't be keeping him if they didn't think he could fit in that environment. But if he fits in that environment, then what he can do with the quality is more than what most managers can do with the quality, in my opinion. Is getting them up to the standard is where other managers might be a bit more secure. But like I said, we're Manchester United. I'm looking at how good can you make us, like, in terms of ceiling, not, okay, how secure can you make us in terms of floor?
Yeah, so I'm just going through some of the other stuff that Ducker said. And he said, Manchester United have a net budget of around 50 million to spend, plus whatever they can raise from player sales with the club, hoping to offload the likes of Greenwood and Sancho, each of whom are valued at 40 million. 50 million quid is not a lot for your budget. And so Jim Ratcliffe said in his interview, he said that he's not confident that we're going to solve all the issues this summer, which that's impossible. No. There are 8, 9, 10 players I could name who should be sold, and there are 8, 9, 10 positions that we need to buy. We're not going to be transferring in and out a net of 20 players.
Yeah.
But I reckon we can get over 100 million in sales. I think Sancho and Greenwood will go for, 80, 85 million. Alvaro Fernandez went for 5 or 6. Lindelof, if he gets sold, that's 10, 15 million quid. Yeah. If Scott McTominay goes, that's about 30. So I think we can raise 100, 150 million in sales, but we need to do that quickly. That's another thing with INEOS, is I want to see quick stuff happen in the transfer window.
Yeah.
We are doing that, looking to activate Zirkzee's release clause immediately.
Negotiating with Branthwaite.
Quickly, negotiating with Branthwaite, finding an agreement on 150, 160,000 pounds a week on the first day of the window, submitting a bid, it getting rejected, considering, talking to UEFA about the Todibo stuff. This is all happening after the Ten Hag stuff. It's all happening in a few weeks. I like this. And we're going for players who, obviously, Zirkzee wasn't meant to be in the Euros. So I think he was a player that we were targeting as someone who wasn't going to be in the Euros, but then he got called up, I think, just before 2 days before the Netherlands started playing. But he's got release clause, so negotiating with Bologna we're just paying the release clause. It's just negotiating with the agent and him on a contract. So they're going for players who aren't playing in the Euros, which is nice. They're trying to get people in early. They're trying to get their stuff done early, which I'm happy about this. But they need to pull through on it. Yeah. You can have good intentions. You can make the agreement. You can do this, but you need to
deliver.
Bully Everton, not bully Everton, but like
not bully Everton.
Make the value of him 50, 55 million, blah blah blah. And then you can move on to a midfielder, and then you can move on to a second centre-back, and then you can potentially move on to another winger if we sell Greenwood and Sancho and Anthony. I don't know about
Hopefully Anthony.
Anthony's probably staying. I reckon he's staying.
Oh.
But just because there's bigger priorities. Keep Anthony there, whatever. He can play 15 games. He can come off the bench and do something.
Can he? Can we just
I don't know.
let him
I don't
just
know, man.
not play at all?
That's what I really want. I want us decisive action. They've had the first step of that, but they need to pull through.
Yeah.
Let's say by the end of what day? What's the date today? 20th. If we can get signing in through the next week, or I don't know, maybe not. Or like, let's say by mid-July, 3 signings through the door. That's when pre-season starts.
And then
that needs to happen. If we get dragged out until August again, and we sign there's a window we signed Cavani, we signed 4 players in the last 2 days of the window in mid-October. It doesn't work. It's not good. We need to be quick, decisive, fast, and
we need to get players integrated.
Yeah, we need to, because Ten Hag's probably going to, if there's this whole Jason Wilcox, we're going to play this brand of football. Eric Ten Hag, you need to make sure that we're playing this kind of style. You need to make sure that this kind of stuff is happening. Ten Hag's going to have to sit down at the drawing board and go, this is what I was doing last season. Okay, now we need to change this. We then have these 5 players who are now all going here. Pre-season's huge for him. You've got 5 games in pre-season. You need the players in it for those 5 games of pre-season.
Build familiarity. One thing though, given a lot of players at the Euros and stuff, and obviously some players like Garnacho, for example, at the Copa America.
Copa America as well.
It's a bit of a pain. They're doing all that travelling, and then, so obviously Germany, obviously not too far from here, but then you're going to America. Now, thankfully, it's not like last summer where we were from far east coast to far west coast. That was just stupid.
That summer, last summer.
That was one of the dumbest things ever. This time we're a bit more concentrated, but it is a lot of travelling. And again, this is one of the biggest things when it comes to recovery, travel time. So are the players going to recover fully? And we've just come off this season of great injuries. We need to manage that.
Yeah. International competitions, I like them. But at the same time, they really mess up the windows. But hey ho, I think the way INEOS are going about it, it's smart. They are targeting players who aren't playing in international competitions, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I think, we'll wrap up the podcast in a minute. So we're just gonna final bits. What are your predictions for the summer? Start of the season, we've seen the fixture list come out. I think United have a fantastic fixture list, by the way. We don't play more than one Big Six team each month, bar December, where we play Arsenal and Man City away, but there are 6 games in December anyway. Our fixture list is how I would design a fixture list. First game of the season at home, last game of the season at home, first big game of the season, Liverpool away, end of August, early on, also at home. I think it's the ideal fixture list. Whereas you compare Man City, I think in February and March, or January and February, have top 8 teams. It's 4 top 6 teams and Newcastle all in a row, which obviously they'll all win and then win the league again. But whatever. But I think our fixture list is perfect for the season. Again, it's another thing. It's not you can't be using an excuse in a few months' time at the end of the season if we do badly.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think we get a decent 4th placed finish, to be honest.
What do you mean by decent? As in we're not fighting for it in the last day?
We're not fighting for it in the last day, but also we look like we deserve to be in the top 4. We don't have a lot of people saying oh, Rashford's bailing you out with goals, or Højlund's bailing you out, or Bruno's, carrying, or, getting loads of penalties, whatever. I think we will win. We'll get in the top 4. We will look like a top 4 team who can build.
Yeah, and top 4 team in a good way. So there is a lot of stigma around being it's his 3rd season now. When we're still fighting for top 4, we need to be fighting until no, be realistic. We are not fighting for the league next year. If we end up fighting for the league next season, fantastic, great, awesome. But realistically, top 4, and I think top 4 is a good goal. Same with the Europa League. You can normally say, we're in the Europa League, not the Champions League. But for some reason, I've got a good vibe about the Europa League because of the way we got in there. We got in there by winning a trophy, win the FA Cup, and it's it was going to be much worse.
I think we need
but
to be honest.
Europa League. Actually, that's another point we haven't talked about with Zirkzee. Just, Europa League competition. You've got 2 good strikers, 2 young strikers who can play in both competitions. We could start off with Højlund playing in the Premier League, 'cause he's more used to the Premier League. There's 8 games in the group stage now of the Europa League.
8?
Yeah, it's 8 because
it's a stupid new format.
The whole format's a whole other thing. But there's 8, so Zirkzee can play in the Europa League games, get used to his teammates, come off the bench in the Premier League, and then maybe if he starts doing well, starts scoring a couple of goals, he can then start in the Premier League. Højlund can then go, oh, okay, I need to fix up, I need to do this, blah, 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 blah. Then competition starts. Just like Jaco said, he's just written here, he just put healthy competition.
Yeah.
Which is a fantastic thing about him.
Look, Man United's treble-winning team had 4 strikers.
But they did play 2 up front.
They played 2 up front, but you know what I mean? Like, 4 strikers, all of them were starting quality. We played 2 up front, but it's that healthy competition. That's what you need at Manchester United. It can't just be the thing of, oh, we can't sign this player because of how this player feels. If you feel scared of competition, go play for Everton or something. Like,
you're right.
At Man United, you've got to be willing to fight for it that bit more. I was going to say, before we wrap up, are there any more interesting questions from the chat?
It's mainly Ryan McDermott saying I had a great point with the avoiding international players. Just most stuff about Zirkzee. One actually did say, if we're talking to Bologna for Zirkzee, it can't hurt to ask about Calafiori. But and then another said, he has a 50% sell-on clause from Basel, not a deal worthy to explore. Now, I don't actually know who that is.
He is a fantastic player, but Italians don't often leave Italy.
What type of player?
Centre-back.
Centre-back. Right centre-back?
Yeah, very, very well-rounded. So a lot of people talked about Lukumi, who's their left-sided centre-back, but Calafiori is actually probably the better player. But very rounded player, really good on the ball. He's got a very high ceiling, but like I said, Italians don't often leave Italy. Like, if he leaves Bologna, it'll be to go to Juventus, realistically.
Yeah, everyone does, doesn't they?
Yeah.
I've seen also, there's also just another thing is, I've seen stuff about Chiesa. There was a lot of stuff about, is it Chiesa or Chiesa? Chiesa in January. And Juventus are talking to United about both Sancho and Greenwood. I think he wouldn't be a bad option.
Yeah,
if we get to the point where we want to sign a wing, because I think wing is 5th or 6th on our priority, realistically.
It's not that high.
It's not that high, but I really like Chiesa.
I think
I've
he's
always
a good player.
quite liked him. And I think 1 year left on his deal, as it stands, he's not signing a new contract. You put cheeky, 25, 30 mil bid in there.
He can play all across the attack, and that's what I like about him. He's just one of those valuable options to have. If I'd be looking at Ahmad being our starting right winger next season, I think towards the end of the last season where we controlled games better, a lot of people said it's because Amrabat coming into the midfield. It was actually because of Ahmad coming on the wing, because the way we play, when we get the ball out to the wingers, you think about Garnacho, Rashford, very direct players. Someone like Antony, despite the fact he's apparently supposed to be like retention-based winger, can't keep the ball. Ahmad actually kept the ball, so we weren't rushing into the final third. We were actually working our way there better. And Ahmad brings that creative spark. Someone like Højlund will thrive off that because Ahmad can pick the pass for him. Ahmad can find Rashford with that switch to the other side. I would be looking at Ahmad for our starting right winger, but having someone like Chiesa as a backup on the wings is not a bad idea.
So Ahmad starts, who doesn't?
So you got Ahmad and Rashford probably as our main wingers. Garnacho probably rotates with Rashford quite a bit. Chiesa fills in here and there wherever you need him.
And then the striker is the striker.
Yeah, Højlund and
Zirkzee. Yeah, it looks like we are signing Zirkzee. So we had the breaking news obviously live on the podcast as we were talking about it. This is the first time we've done the podcast live. Thank you very much for everyone who has joined us. It's been a pleasure talking live. It's nice interacting with the people. Interacting with those who watch every week. Yusuf, thank you very much for coming on What the Devil. As always, a pleasure.
In-person live show soon?
Potentially. But so, apart from that, I think we're going to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you next Thursday.